This is Dennis Behreandt coming to you again from the Red Pill Expo. I'm the publisher of the New American magazine. It's my pleasure today to welcome Brent Allen Winters, attorney at law, to our discussion. And Brent, can you tell me a little bit about the common law and its relationship to the United States versus the rest of the world? What makes the United States a unique place with that perspective?
Our common law is distinguished from the law of the city, which governs, if not in law, in fact, every country in the world except our country, including the Islamic countries. But most every country is under some form of the Roman Code of Justinian. Justinian was a Roman emperor, lived in the 7th century and 6th century. All of a sudden, I don't know which one it was, but he, at his behest, established the Roman Code, and he compiled all of the law of the city going back to Babylon, if they could find it, and tried to show that it was the Logos. It was the elegance of truth and balance of law. And every country in the world is under that code except the common law countries, which comes down to mostly the English-speaking world. We have here things like the right to remain silent, the jury, freedom of speech, on the other flip side of the coin of governance over a man's tongue, the Fourth Amendment. Our Constitution of the United States is a brief of common law government. According to our Supreme Court, they got it right. A brief of common law government, and it's really impossible, and this is my experience too, to really understand what it says unless it is informed of the common law, because the Constitution of the United States doesn't explain anything. It's not intended to explain anything. It's intended to put it out there, but all those words and phrases, Dennis, freight information from our common law into our Constitution. It says trial by jury. Well, what's a trial at common law? Well, what's a jury? When do you impanel the jury? Who makes up the jury? Well, our Constitution says something about that, but not a lot. You got to impanel a jury just before the trial. If you don't, there's a good chance they may get bribed. Little things like that are all part of our common law tradition. And so our common law, as the law of the land, as our Constitution calls it, that's another phrase that denominates our common law. That's lifted from Magna Carta. That's what they called it in those days. Our common law distinguishes us from the rest of the world, even the militia. By the way, just to bring up another point, America is the only common law country, there aren't that many, but it's the only common law country that won its independence and its existence on fields of battle. We're the only one. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong right now. I'm just saying we are. And the reason fundamentally that happened is because even William Blackstone in his commentaries in the first volume says, our common law, speaking of the English people, our common law does not apply in our American plantations. That's a quote. It doesn't apply. William Blackstone's, the rest of his commentaries are pretty good. But that was a tragic mistake that Parliament made. They said the common law doesn't apply. George III is king in England, but in our colonies around the world, he's emperor. Well, that's not a common law phrase. A king is a limited thing. Our executive, our president, our Constitution makes that a limited office. That's a lot of talk for a short question, but I'll take a breather.
Well, that's the kind of talk we were looking to get. So let's carry that through to the present day. We have the trends that are happening in this country right now with regard to the political discord that's been in place between the two parties. There's been a lot of confusion among the populace as to what took place with the election. This might be a tough question to ask, because I'm going to ask you to kind of tell me, where do you see these trends going? Because we're talking about the future, and the future is never guaranteed. But from your point of view as a constitutional scholar, as a scholar of the history of the law, where do you see things happening in this country? Where do you see things going in the next few years?
We're going the same way all nations go, unless something intervenes. The providence of God himself would be the ideal. But he uses men, obviously, and sometimes we don't even know it. But the only two options we have, Abe Lincoln said this in his debates in Illinois back in 1858, and so did his opponent acknowledge it, Douglas. Either we follow the idea that you work, you earn bread, and you eat it. That's pretty close to a quote. We follow that idea, or we follow the idea that you work, you earn bread, and the other fellow gets to eat it. And what he was distinguishing there, and he went on to unpack that, the law of the land versus the law of the city. Lincoln, whatever else you may think about him, he understood it. He didn't always practice it,
right,
but he did understand it. Oh, by the way, habeas corpus, that's a common law doctrine,
right?
And it's a way to achieve a common law end. It's a way, and that's another key thing. Where's our country going? We're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Our common law is due process. It's a way of life. It's not a list of laws. The law of the city is result-oriented. In the law of the city countries, they're tribunals. They have no trials. They only have inquisitions, mild, but inquisitions often. Policy, there's another law of the city word,
Policy.
the city, politics, polis. The stress is we must reach the result that the powers that be say through their legislation. We must reach that result. So the concentration is on the result, is a result-oriented, the law of the city is. The law of the land is process-oriented. I go into court and I think back on the things I've done. Really all I've ever done is said, wait a minute, this ain't fair. Slow the machinery down. This man has a right to remain silent. He has a right to a fair play. That's common law, fair play. That word doesn't occur in the rest of the world, just in the English-speaking world. That's part of our common law way of life. This man has a right to fair play. And what we stress in our trials is fair play. As the courts sometimes say, the Queensberry's rules. As by analogy to the boxing.
Right.
There's no sucker punches. It's battle. It's battle by trial, and battle by trial has arisen in our common law tradition from trial by battle. Used to, when men had disputes over what was valuable, land was still valuable. That's, by the way, it's the law of the land, which could be translated Magna Carta in one sense, lex terra, land law. And that's what they called it. And that is land law of the land equals due process. But they used to have a battle. Well, and they followed very stringent rules. And if you didn't follow those rules, you didn't win. It isn't a free-for-all. The law of the city wants a free-for-all. They want confusion because they cannot win. We're going that direction, but they cannot win by winning the hearts of the American people because they won't go there. They see what it is. So they have to create revolution. And by the way, the law of the city is a law of revolution. The law of the land and assassination and coup. The law of the land is not a law of that. Seward, an attempt was made on his life when Lincoln was killed the very night. I like talking to you because I know you know more about history than I do, but when I mention things, you know. He said that very night, he said, we don't have to worry about assassination. He didn't say, he didn't say we're a common law country, but he said that's not part of our tradition in our English-speaking world, assassination. But ever since Lincoln, it was moving in that direction. We've had assassinations. That's not part of that kind of South America, violence. Nothing but the revolving. That word revolution means to revolve. I kill you and get power, then you kill me, then I kill you. I have a friend in Argentina.
Okay.
Whose father was involved in overthrowing the government. He was a conservative. They got the job done. And now he's really upset. Why? Well, because now they've taken power again. And we keep building our sandcastles. Look at them, and then the inundating tides of reality keep washing them away because we're willing to participate in a revolution. Our break from Britain was not a revolution. It was we didn't say we're going to establish a new dawn and get a new calendar. No, we said we're going to continue. We just want to continue the way we're going. We didn't change our state governments; just became into. We didn't change our courts; were still there. We did not try to make something new. It wasn't out of whole cloth. We said, and Justice Wilson in the U.S. Supreme Court made the point. He said, our Constitution is not anything new, is an attempt, just as Magna Carta, to reach back to old Anglo-Saxon England and establish what we had lost. That's our common law, which arose on the continent a long time ago when those tribes migrated. That's what we're after. Where are we going? We're going to the law of the city. That's where all men go when they're cut loose from reality, when they're cut loose from the laws of nature, unwritten. And the nature of reality around us and the laws of nature is God written. Now, I know you've got a lot to say about this subject. You've been very kind to allow me to talk, but I'd have to stop because I think you have intelligent questions, or maybe we're at the end of the interview.
We're close to the end of the interview. We need to wrap up because there's other people that need to use this space, but there is an important thing I want to ask you. Maybe you could help our listeners and our viewers understand this point. People feel, I think, a little bit powerless in the face of the events that they've seen unfold around them the past 24 months or so. How do the people of this country take the knowledge that you've just given them maybe learn more about it from you, and how do they find that? But how do they then become the types of people, the types of agents of change that can help bring back the country to the correct path and get it off this path to the law of the city and reinvigorate the common law tradition of the United States?
The evil empire, the law of the city, wants to save the world. That's what Marxism is. Karl Marx, I'm going to save the world. He lost his daughters. They committed suicide. Noah, by contrast, he didn't say, I'm going to save the world. He said, I want to save my family. And he built the ark. And when he went into the ark, he was in the minority. When he came out, he was in the majority. God does not work through the majority process the way people think he does. No, he works with the individual. And if you will concentrate, I say this to your listeners, I call it the Noah principle. Our problem is lawlessness. And unless you have government in your life and you can govern your body and you can govern in your family, your wife and you, or if you're a single parent, take up the responsibility God has given you and establish God's way. The laws of nature, unwritten in the nature of things, are common law. The way we do things, the laws of nature is God. That raises a lot of questions. How do you find it? You go to you go to commonlawyer.com, the law school there. I want to teach all the things that the law school should have taught me and didn't. I'm not complaining about it. They taught me a lot. But there are a lot of things they didn't teach me. The four militia clauses of the Constitution, I should have had a course. What is a jury? What is a grand jury? I should have had a course. And other things we teach, and due process more particularly. A course strictly on the history of our common law, comparative law. Comparing the law of the land and the law of the city, the only two options we have. Right? We're either tending toward the one, says Lincoln, or we're tending toward the other. Where are we going? The only thing that'll change things in America, we're suffering with lawlessness. We're awash in it, is lawfulness, and it only takes one. It only takes one. I would say to my fellow Americans, to quote Lyndon Johnson, right? Concentrate on governing yourself and your family. And I appreciate folk like this who allow me to say a few words, and I appreciate what you're doing. commonlawyer.com. Get the comparative law text and get the translation of the Bible. I have a translation of the Bible. They call it the winterized version. My name's Winters. Winterized version from the original tongues. And I try to flesh this out in the Bible as well. 15,000 footnotes or more. And then the comparative law text and publications on the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the jury, little short booklets. Listen to me talk from now till the cows come home.
Fantastic. Attorney Brent Allen Winters, thank you so much for joining us. One more time, your website, sir.
www.commonlawyer.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Dennis Behreandt, publisher of the New American Magazine at Red Pill Expo. Thank you very much for watching us today.